My name is Hazel, and I live in Austin, Texas. For as long as I can remember, my life has been a delicate balance of trying to meet the expectations of a family that didn't seem to care much for me. I work as an office administrator at a mid-sized company, and while it isn't my dream job, it pays the bills and gives me a sense of independence. That independence has been my lifeline, especially living under the same roof as my mom, Karen, and my stepsister, Zoe. My mom has always loved Zoe more than me. It's not subtle, it's glaringly obvious. Zoe is her golden child, her everything. Growing up, my mom would go out of her way to ensure Zoe had the best clothes, the best gadgets, and the best attention, all while I was given the leftovers. When I was a kid, I used to think maybe it was something I did wrong. Maybe if I were smarter or prettier, my mom would love me just as much. But over time, I realized it wasn't about me, it was about her. Zoe, for her part, knew how to play the role of the favored child perfectly. She was charming and sweet when my mom was around, but behind closed doors, she treated me like a servant. My mom didn't just allow it, she encouraged it. I became the one who cleaned up Zoe's messes, did her laundry, and even helped her with school projects when she couldn't be bothered. And if I ever complained, my mom would shut me down, telling me I should help my sister because family takes care of each other. Funny how that never seemed to apply to Zoe. By the time I was in my mid-20s, I'd stopped expecting any kind of fairness from my mom. I learned to focus on myself, my work, my small circle of friends, and my dream of one day having a life far away from the toxicity of my home. But even as I tried to carve out a little space for myself, my mom and Zoe would find ways to pull me back into their chaos. It was exhausting, but I kept telling myself that someday I'd break free. Little did I know that breaking point was closer than I thought. One Friday evening, after a long and grueling day at work, I walked into the house hoping for nothing more than a quiet night. My office job might not be glamorous, but it kept me busy and allowed me to keep some distance from the drama at home. I kicked off my shoes, put my bag down, and barely had a moment to breathe before my mom's voice echoed through the hallway. "Hazel, come here. We need to talk," she shouted from the living room. Her tone was sharp, the kind that made me instinctively brace myself. With a sigh, I made my way to the couch, where she was sitting with her arms crossed, a look of impatience on her face. Zoe was sprawled out next to her, scrolling through her phone like she didn't have a care in the world. I didn't even get a chance to sit before my mom launched into it. "Your birthday is coming up next week," she began, her tone oddly matter-of-fact. For a split second, I thought maybe she was planning something nice for me. A small celebration, perhaps. A rare moment of attention directed my way. But then, her true intentions became painfully clear. "I need you to give me $2,000, she said, as casually as if she were asking me to pass the salt. "Zoe needs some new clothes, and her laptop is on its last legs. We'll make it part of the birthday plan so it'll all tie together nicely." I stared at her, dumbfounded. "Wait," I said slowly, "you're asking me for $2,000 of my own money for Zoe's clothes and her laptop? For my birthday?" "Yes," she replied, as if it were the most logical thing in the world. "She's your sister. You should want to help her. Besides, she needs these things more than you do." Zoe didn't even look up from her phone. "Yeah, Hazel," she said with a shrug. "You're always working. It's not like you spend your money on anything important." I felt the familiar anger bubbling up, but I tried to stay calm. "Mom," I said firmly, "I don't work to fund Zoe's lifestyle. I work to take care of myself. If she needs a laptop and clothes, she can get a job and pay for them herself." The room went silent for a moment, and then my mom's expression hardened. "Don't be selfish, Hazel," she snapped. "You're always so focused on yourself. This is your family. You should be helping us, not hoarding your money like some greedy miser." "Selfish," I echoed, my voice rising. "You're seriously calling me selfish because I won't spend $2,000 on Zoe on my birthday? Do you even hear yourself?" Her response was swift and brutal. She stood up and slapped me across the face. The sound of it echoed in the room, and for a moment, everything felt surreal. My cheeks stung, but the pain was nothing compared to the wave of humiliation and betrayal that crashed over me. "You have 20 hours to pack your things and get out of this house," she said coldly. "If you can't contribute to this family, then you don't belong here." I stared at her stunned. Zoe finally looked up, but only to smirk, clearly enjoying the show. My mom didn't even seem angry, just resolute, as if she'd made a perfectly reasonable decision. I took a deep breath, willing myself not to cry. "Fine," I said quietly. "If that's how you feel, I'll leave." I turned and walked away, my hands trembling as I made my way to my room. I started packing, my mind racing. Part of me wanted to scream, to fight back, to make her see how unfair and cruel she was being. But another part of me knew this was my chance to finally break free from the toxic grip my mom and Zoe had on me. That night, as I stuffed my belongings into suitcases and bags, I felt a strange mix of fear and relief. I didn't know where I was going or what I was going to do, but I knew one thing for sure. I was done being their scapegoat. A year passed since that night. I packed my things and walked out of my mom's house for good. It wasn't easy at first. I spent the first few weeks sleeping on a friend's couch, trying to figure out how to rebuild my life. I used what little savings I had to find a tiny studio apartment on the outskirts of Austin. It wasn't much, just a single room with a kitchenette and a bathroom. But it was mine. For the first time, I had a space where I could breathe, where I didn't feel like I was constantly under someone else's thumb. At first, the silence was jarring. I wasn't used to coming home to a place where no one was yelling at me or demanding something. But as the days turned into weeks, I started to embrace it. I poured myself into my work, taking on extra projects and saving every penny I could. Slowly, I started to rebuild not just my finances, but my sense of self. I also began to form connections with people who genuinely cared about me. My coworker, Lisa, invited me to join a book club she hosted, and it became my weekly escape. Through the club, I met people who were kind, supportive, and understanding. They became the family I had always wished for, filling a void I hadn't realized was so deep. Despite all the progress I made, there was still a part of me that carried the scars of my past. I avoided calls from my mom and Zoe, not wanting to reopen old wounds. At first they called often, my mom leaving voicemails alternating between guilt trips and insults, and Zoe occasionally texting me as if nothing had happened. But when I didn't respond, the calls eventually stopped. That is, until one evening when my phone rang unexpectedly. I was in the middle of cooking dinner when I saw my mom's name flashing on the screen. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but something told me to pick up. "Hazel," she said as soon as I answered. Her voice was shaky, almost frantic. I need your help." I froze. It had been over a year since I'd heard her voice, and I didn't know how to feel. "What's going on?" I asked cautiously. "It's Zoe," she said, and her voice cracked. She left. She's gone, Hazel." She packed up and moved out without saying a word. "She took everything, my savings, the car, even the jewelry your dad left me. I don't know what to do." I felt a pang of something, sympathy, maybe? But it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of justice. This was the same woman who had kicked me out of her house, who had slapped me and called me selfish because I refused to give her money for Zoe. And now she was asking for my help. "I'm sorry to hear that," I said, my tone measured. "But what do you want me to do about it?" "I need you to come home," she said, her voice breaking. "I can't do this on my own. I'm all alone, Hazel. I don't have anyone else." I laughed bitterly. "You mean you don't have Zoe? The daughter you prioritize over everything else? The one you spent all your money on while treating me like I didn't matter. She's the one you should be calling, not me." "Hazel, please," she begged. "I know I made mistakes, but I need you now. I miss you. I love you." Her words felt like a punch to the gut. All those years of yearning for her love and approval. And now she was offering it to me, when she had no one else. It wasn't love. It was desperation. "I don't think you understand," I said, my voice steady. "I'm not your safety net. You made it clear where I stood in your life when you kicked me out. You chose Zoe, and now you're facing the consequences of that choice." "But Hazel," she said, her voice rising in panic, "I have nothing. I'm losing the house. I can't pay the bills. Please, I'll do anything. Just come back." I took a deep breath, fighting back the surge of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. "No, Mom," I said firmly, "I'm not coming back. I spent my whole life trying to earn your love, trying to prove I was worth something to you, and all I ever got in return was neglect and abuse. I won't put myself through that again." There was a long pause on the other end of the line. When my mom finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. "You don't mean that?" "I do," I said. "And if you can't accept that, then maybe it's better if we don't talk anymore." She started crying, pleading with me to reconsider, but I held my ground. For the first time in my life, I chose myself over her. The days following that phone call were a whirlwind of emotions. Part of me felt guilty for turning my back on her, but another part of me felt liberated. For so long, I had allowed her to control me, to dictate how I felt about myself. But now, I was free. That sense of freedom was tested a few weeks later when my mom showed up at my apartment unannounced. I came home from work to find her sitting on the steps outside my building, looking disheveled and defeated. "Hazel," she said as I approached, her voice heavy with exhaustion. I had nowhere else to go. I stared at her, torn between compassion and anger. "How did you even find me?" "I called Lisa," she admitted. "I begged her to tell me where you lived." "Please, Hazel, just let me come in, just for tonight." I hesitated. Letting her in felt like opening a door I had worked so hard to close. But at the same time, I couldn't just leave her out there. "Fine," I said reluctantly, unlocking the door and letting her inside. She looked around my small apartment, her eyes lingering on the framed photos of my friends and the cozy decorations I had picked out. "You've done well for yourself," she said softly. I didn't respond. Instead, I crossed my arms and waited for her to say what she had come to say. "I'm sorry," she said finally, tears welling up in her eyes. "I know I was a terrible mother. I know I hurt you. I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I'm begging you, Hazel. Please help me." Her words hung in the air, heavy with years of unresolved pain. "I spent my whole life trying to get you to say those words," I said quietly. "But now that you have, I don't feel the way I thought I would. You're not here because you've changed or because you love me. You're here because you have no one else." "That's not true," she protested. "I do love you, Hazel. I've always loved you." I shook my head. "No, Mom, you loved Zoe. You loved the idea of having a perfect family, but you never loved me, not the way a mother should." She started crying again, and for a moment I felt a pang of sympathy. But then I remembered all the nights I had cried myself to sleep, all the times I had begged for her attention and been ignored. "I'm not going to let you back into my life just because you're desperate," I said firmly. "You need to figure out your own problems. I'm not your savior." She begged me again, but I stayed strong. Eventually she left, and as I closed the door behind her, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. In the weeks after my mom left my apartment, I felt a profound sense of relief. The years of manipulation, guilt, and emotional pain no longer had a hold on me. For the first time in my life, I wasn't carrying the weight of someone else's expectations or demands. I was free. I threw myself into the life I had been slowly building, pouring my energy into things that brought me joy. My job became more than just a means of survival. I found ways to make it fulfilling. I started taking classes to improve my skills, dreaming of a promotion or maybe even starting my own business someday. For the first time, I felt like I had a future to look forward to, a future that I was in control of. My small but cozy apartment became a sanctuary. I filled it with things that made me happy: books, plants, soft blankets, and art that spoke to me. I hosted movie nights with friends from the book club, turning my little living room into a place of laughter and warmth. Lisa, my coworker turned best friend, became my biggest cheerleader. "You've come so far, Hazel," she said one evening as we sipped coffee on my balcony. "You should be proud of yourself." And I was. For the first time in my life, I felt proud of who I was and the choices I had made. One of the most rewarding parts of my new life was the relationships I built with people who genuinely cared about me. The book club friends became my second family. We shared stories, celebrated birthdays, and supported each other through life's ups and downs. They taught me what unconditional love and friendship looked like, things I had never truly experienced growing up. Eventually, I even met someone special. His name was Ethan, a kind and thoughtful man I met through a mutual friend. He was patient, funny, and supportive in ways I hadn't known were possible. We started as friends, but over time, our connection deepened into something more. Ethan respected my boundaries and encouraged my growth, never trying to take away the independence I had worked so hard to achieve. One evening, as we walked along the trail by Lady Bird Lake, he stopped and turned to me. "You've been through so much, Hazel," he said, his eyes full of admiration. "But you're one of the strongest people I've ever met. I'm lucky to have you in my life." I smiled, feeling a warmth I hadn't known I needed. "I'm lucky too," I said. The pain of my past didn't disappear overnight, but it stopped defining me. Every step I took toward happiness and self-love, was a step further away from the hurt I had endured. As for my mom, I eventually blocked her number. I knew she would never change, and I wasn't willing to let her drag me back into the chaos I had worked so hard to escape. It wasn't an easy decision, but it was the right one. Some wounds don't heal with time, they heal with distance. On my 30th birthday, I threw a party for myself for the first time ever. My apartment was filled with people I cared about, people who cared about me in return. There was laughter, music, and a cake that Lisa had baked, complete with candles for me to blow out. As I looked around the room, surrounded by love and joy, I realized I had finally found the life I deserved. I had built it with my own 2 hands, brick by brick, and no one could take it away from me. When the candles were lit, everyone started chanting, "Make a wish." I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. But I didn't need to make a wish. Everything I had ever wished for was already right there with me.